As we have discussed hypothalamus yesterday, that hypothalamus is the very important part of brain, diencephalon, which is almost 4 grams in weight, and having some connection, important connections. For example, we have where hypothalamus is present? Hypothalamus is present in diencephalon, right? And it is present anteriorly and inferiorly to thalamus, or it is present on each side of third ventricle. So for example, this is third ventricle. This is third ventricle, right? And as you know that this is the left side of hypothalamus and this is the right side of hypothalamus. Some important fibers are entering to hypothalamus, which are called the fornix system of brain. Fornix system. Almost the fornix system is related with memories, recollecting of memories, right? Memory is the function of, basically it is a function of mammillary bodies, but when we recollect the memories, the fast memories, this is the function of fornix system, and this fornix system is entering to this hypothalamus. For example, this is cerebellum nuclei and this is the fornix fibers. Fornix system 1 and this is fornix system second fornix system. Here two swellings are present which are called mammillary bodies. For example, this is one mammillary body or mammillary swelling, and this is other mammillary swelling, right? The area where these fibers are entering to this mammillary body is called the substance of thalamus. It's called the substance of thalamus. For example, this is the substance of thalamus, and here two dominant structures are present. They are called thalami. And thalami are also connected with these mammillary bodies by which tract? Mammillothalamic fibers. These are mammillothalamic fibers are tracts. This is fornix fibers. For example, I am removing, these are fornix fibers. These are also fornix fibers. What is the importance of this fornix system? It dividing the hypothalamus into lateral and medial parts. For example, this is the right medial hypothalamus and this is the left medial hypothalamus, right? And this is the left lateral hypothalamus, this is the right lateral hypothalamus, right? Yesterday we have discussed the nuclei of this blue area, the lateral side, having how many nuclei? Preoptic, sexually dimorphic nuclei and lateral hypothalamic nuclei, right? For example, if we remove these areas, we will only see this area is called tuber tuber cinereum. This is stalk of pituitary gland, which is also known as infundibulum or stalk of pituitary gland, infundibulum. And here we have two lobes gland, which is called pituitary gland, the anterior lobe and posterior. This is anterior side, this is posterior side, right? Here a structure present called chiasma. This is chiasma. From where this chiasma occurs? This is the area where optic nerves joining each other, the right optic nerve and left optic nerve, right? So this area will call the preoptic area, right? Now you will tell me the nucleus that we have already discussed. For example, this is the lateral, or this is the third ventricle. This is this green is medial side of hypothalamus and this red is lateral side of hypothalamus, right? Which nuclei is present here? Preoptic nuclei. Preoptic nuclei have two parts. One is lateral part, one is medial. Mean that this nuclei is present in both medial and lateral. For example, here this is that nuclei, and here also this is that nucleus, which is called preoptic nuclei. What is the role of preoptic nuclei? It secretes a type of chemical which is called gonadotrophin releasing factors. This is tuber cinereum, this is mammilary swelling, and for example this is anterior pituitary gland, and this is posterior pituitary gland, right? From here, from this preoptic nuclei, a type of chemical is releasing which is called gonadotropic releasing factor, right? And here is a very good blood circulation, blood supply of pituitary gland. For example, this is the blood supply of anterior pituitary gland. Mean that this preoptic nuclei will secrete its hormone in anterior pituitary gland. This is the first hormone which is released by anterior pituitary gland. It is called gonadotropin, or called follicle stimulating hormone or luteinizing hormone. These two hormones are stimulated by hypothalamic nuclei, which is called preoptic nuclei, by releasing the chemical which is called gonadotropin releasing factor. And this is the point how we can say that this hypothalamus is responsible for controlling pituitary gland, right? So these chemicals are added to this blood and came here. Here are two special cells, and these special cells are called gonadotropin releasing or secreting cells. This one is called follicle stimulating releasing secreting cell, and this is called luteinizing hormone releasing cell. So this gonadotropin releasing factors act on these cells, and these cells are stimulated for producing follicle stimulating hormone and luteinizing hormone. right? Follicle stimulating hormones and luteinizing hormones acts on ovaries in females, and from ovaries it will secrete estrogen and progesterone, right? In males these two hormones are act on testes and it produce testosterones, right? This is some repetition from yesterday, right? This preoptic nuclei is responsible for gonadotrophin releasing factor. They are added to this blood and control these two cells which are responsible for releasing gonadotrophin, which is also known as follicle stimulating and luteinizing hormone. So kine poigora delta pade side manage neurons. This is the function of preoptic nuclei, right? Here is one other nuclei present, for example here in lateral side, and this nucleus is called sexually dimorphic nuclei, and the function of this nuclei is to differentiate between the heterosexual people and homosexual people, right? This is the function of sexually dimorphic nuclei, and the development of this sexually dimorphic nuclei occurs in fetal stages, right? And in that stage this nuclei is controlled by androgens produced by mother. Three types of sexually minded peoples. One is homosexual, second is bisexual, the third is heterosexual. Homosexual likes its own type of sex. Heterosex, for example, males likes males, is homosexual. Female likes females, is homosexual. If female likes males, this is heterosexual, and male likes females, this is heterosexual, and one person likes both males and females, this is called bisexual. This is the function of sexually dimorphic nuclei. This nuclei is firing, right? So this is the preoptic and sexually dimorphic nuclei, which are the important nuclei of lateral hypothalamus. The third important nuclei which is present in lateral hypothalamus, this nuclei is called lateral hypothalamic nuclei, right? And this nucleus is responsible for hunger, anger, sadness, and thirst, right? And this is the way how hypothalamus controls our emotions and feelings, right? When you are hungry, you will be angry, right? And when you are thirsty, you will search for water, and when you are hungry, you will search for food. This awareness is provided by this nuclei which is present in lateral side of hypothalamus, right? Now in medial side, a nucleus is present which is called ventromedial nuclei, and this is just the opposite nuclei of lateral, which is responsible for full stomach, happiness, relaxation, and when you are no thirst, right? Mean that when you are hungry, this nucleus is firing, this is activated. You will be sad because this is common nuclei, right? And when you are eating, as you are eating, as you are eating or your feeding is in progress, slowly this nuclei is deactivating and this nuclei activating. And when this nucleus fully activated, you will have to stop eating, right? This eating behavior and this timing is controlled by these two nuclei. One is lateral hypothalamic nucleus, which is present in lateral side of hypothalamus, and the second is present in the medial side, which is called ventromedial nuclei, right? And these nucleus are of course they will present on both sides. So this is lateral hypothalamic nuclei and this is ventromedial nuclei, right? This is these nucleuses are present in the lateral sides of hypothalamus. So we can say that the hypothalamus having three main functions: the limbic functions, autonomic functions, and endocrine functions. Now, what are the autonomic nervous system functions controlled by these two nucleuses? This nucleus, which is called the lateral hypothalamic nucleus. For example, when you are hungry, mean that when you are in a hypoglycemic state, when your sugar level is low, your heart rate will be high, your body will be sweating. चकल उगी इंसान का ना ज़्यादा उगी शी, heart rate से वाशी, ठीक दा बल सोशी, ख्वाले बदर माने राशी, बल बसोशी, irritability बरमाने राशि, and all these character are of autonomic nervous system, is called sympathetic nervous system. So it also controlled there are some neurons arising from this nuclei in diffused form, like this, and these neurons controlling sympathetic nervous system activities, right, which are fight and flight mood of autonomic nervous system. When you are hungry, you will eagerly search for food. Chikala insan ugi shi kana, no biya rote pasigar zi kana. That's sympathetic nervous activity da. तो पता का टाइम के खामखा का तर उठे ना कोई उबनस के टाइम तो खराबेगी देता फाइट एंड फ्लाइट हुई सही रहा दा न्यूक्लियाई सीधी दा दा मुसर दे sympathetic activities which is autonomic nervous activities. Also these nuclei are responsible for sympathetic nervous system, and opposite this nuclei is controlling the parasympathetic activity, right? It controls the sympathetic activity, and these nuclei control the parasympathetic activities, right? So as I have told you that sympathetic and parasympathetic are activated 50-50 in our body every time, right? So 50% parasympathetic activity is provided by this nuclei and 50% sympathetic activity is provided by this nuclei. When you feel hungry, this activity become high, meaning that it becomes 70% and this activity become 30%. Now you will have to adjust these two values when you search food and eat food, right? These two activities will be again restored, right? Next functions of these nuclei mean that your obesity, your BMI rate is controlled by these nucleuses. Mean that if you activate this nuclei, this hungry nuclei, you will eat more and your BMI will become high, your weight will become high. So our weight is also controlled by these nucleuses, right? With nucleus lateral hypothalamic nuclei. It also control or weight of body, right? And also these nuclei remember the initial weight, right? For example, if a person is 100 kg initially and he or she start dieting, and a time occurs when she gain 60 kg weight, mean that the weight is reducing, right? And at this time she leave dieting, her weight will be restored to 100 kg after some time, after some months, year, right? Because your this nuclei remember the initial weight. So our weight is controlled by these two nuclei, right? The scientist also does some experiments on these. They connect some electrodes to these nuclei in monkeys, right? And free these monkeys in foodie area. They eat and get obese. So they concluded that when we activate these nuclei, we are responsible to eat more food. These nuclei control our body weight, right? This is all about the lateral side of hypothalamus. Now we will discuss the medial side. चिकल तखपल डाइटिंग ar सप्रे दे वापस पजे खपल जायला da gamuno bole bayani mana ha damu sara seshu lateral side. Now we will go for medial side of hypothalamus. So for example here for example this is third ventricle, this is third ventricle, this is medial side of hypothalamus, and this is lateral side of hypothalamus. If we want to study or take the cross sectional of medial side, first we will remove this lateral side, then we will remove this side, and also we will remove this third ventricle, and after removing this third ventricle we will see directly the medial side of hypothalamus, which is connected with pituitary gland, right? So for example, I have two eyeballs here. These are two eyes. From this eye we have optic nerve, and from here we have optic nerve. This is chiasma. This is chiasma, and the hypothalamus is present just after this chiasma. So for example, this is hypothalamus, right? And this is that swelling which is called tuber cinereum, right? And here we have mammilary swelling, and here we have pons medulla, right? This is hypothalamus, and remember that we have removed these areas, and now we are looking to this hypothalamus. We will see the lateral thalamus just above this. This is that lateral, this is lateral hypothalamus, and this green is medial hypothalamus. Here this tuber cinereum, after tuber cinereum we have pituitary stalk, and this is the anterior lobe of pituitary gland, and for example this is the anterior and this is the posterior pituitary gland. Right? Now, this area is divided into four regions. This medial side of hypothalamus is divided into four regions. This is chiasma. Here we have preoptic nuclei. Right? So the first region, this first region, this region is called preoptic region. This region is called preoptic region. Preoptic region. Right? Preoptic region. Right? Now, here, this is the second region, and this region is called supraoptic region. Supraoptic region. This is the second region of medial hypothalamus. Right? This is tuber cynerium. So this region will call tubular region. This region is called tubular region. Tubular region. Right? And the last portion, this is mammillary body or mammillary swelling. This one. So this region is called mammillary region. Mammillary region. This is mammillary region. So the medial hypothalamus is divided into four regions. The first region is preoptic region, the second is supraoptic region, the third is tubular region, and the last one is mammillary region. And after this, the midbrain is present. The midbrain. In midbrain we have which gland? The pineal gland. For example, this is the last portion, mammillary portion, and here we have thalamus. First we have thalamus, and also we have this pineal body or pineal gland. Right? All these things are interconnected. Right? What is subthalamus? What is subthalamus? Anyone? A sheet of gray matter on which the thalami are present. What is epithalamus? Pineal gland, habenular nuclei, habenular commissure. Collectively they are called epithalamus. So this is epithalamus. For example, this blue structure is habenular nuclei, and these fibers are habenular commissure. Right? This area is called epithalamus. Right? The first region is here, and as I have told you that this preoptic nuclei, one portion is present in medial side and this portion is present in lateral side. So for example, here we have a nuclei. This nucleus, which is called preoptic nuclei, but this is medial part of preoptic nuclei, medial part. And also we have sexually dimorphic nuclei, right? And the functions of these two nuclei we already discussed here, right? Now next, the supraoptic nucleus is very important area of hypothalamus. The intra-biological clocks are present here. The air conditional system of body is present in supraoptic region, right? Air conditioner system. The paraventricular area is present here, right? Also, the interior hypothalamic nuclei is also present here, right? For example, this is chiasma. This is chiasma. The first nuclei present here is suprachiasmatic nucleus, because it is present upon chiasma, the first, and they control the day and night. For example, how we aware that this is night, how we aware this is day, how we aware this spring season, this is autumn season, this is winter season. All these calculations are done by this nuclei, right? And this nuclei is called, for example, this is that nucleus. Why I am adding this nucleus is like a clock? Because it gives us awareness about time, right? So this nucleus is called suprachiasmatic nucleus, right? How we know the time, how we know the times of college, that this is the time in which I will be going to college, right? This is the function of this nucleus. Why it is so? Because it gets some fibers from this chiasma, and the light coming from these eyes are detected by this nuclei, right? For example, and nowadays we have how many hours in daytime? 14. We have 14 or 13 hours day. So this nuclei aware that for 14 hours this is daytime. The light coming from outside is the light which is present in daytime, right? After these 14 or 13 hours, we will get the light which is dark, right? So this is the suprachiasmatic nucleus. It is also known as circadian nucleus. Because it aware us about seasons. This is spring, this is autumn, this is winter, right? So this is also known as circadian nucleus, and it controls the day-night rhythms, Also it controls the seasonal or circadian rhythms in our body. How fibers are going backward where to mammillary body. From mammillary body it goes to thalamus. From thalamus it goes to pineal body, and pineal body is responsible for melatonin. It secretes melatonin, right? Melatonin, and this melatonin is also known as dark hormone, because it aware us about darkness, right? The second thing which is secreted by this pineal gland is 5-HT, 5-hydroxytryptophan, which have very important functions in body. You will discuss in cell junctions, right? And the next thing is CCK, cholecystic kinase, and cholecystic kinase have a lot of functions in GIT secretions, right? The HCl secretions, the pepsin, trypsin, these all secretions are controlled by this CCK, cholecystic kinase. So this nuclei is is present here for day-night rhythms and seasonal rhythms, right? The next, our posterior pituitary gland produce two types of hormones only. One is oxytocin and the second is antidiuretic hormones. Right? Now we will discuss both these hormones because the supraoptic nuclei are responsible for producing oxytocin and antidiuretic hormones. Right? For example, we have a nucleus present here. This is now the neuroendocrine functions. Focus on it. This is the neuroendocrine functions, right? Neuroendocrine hormones, because from here, for example, this is the egg, this is neuron, this is the nucleus of neuron. From here, this neuron is running this posterior side of pituitary gland. Here we have axon terminals, right? This is not just a one body. Nuclei is called the collection of cell bodies in gray matter, right? A white matter. So these are the collection of many cell bodies, but we draw only one for easiness, right? We have two neurotransmitters or two hormones which are synthesizing in cell bodies. Not like that acetylcholine is synthesized in terminals of axons. For example, just recap that this is, for example, neuron. I have told you that from here mitochondria is coming and also vesicles to these axon terminals. Choline is coming from diet and acetate is coming from mitochondria. Here both combined and acetylcholines are forming. Here the ADH, antidiuretic hormones, are producing in cell bodies and will came into these axons here and will store in vesicle. These are terminal vesicles. These are ADH which are stored in vesicles, right? But some signals are required for releasing these ADH, antidiuretic hormones, and these signals came from here. We have also here we have some receptors, some neurons which are acting like receptors, and this nuclei is called preoptic, supraoptic nuclei. Supraoptic nuclei is responsible for producing ADH, and about 90% of antidiuretic hormones are synthesizing by this supraoptic nuclei. How many? About 90% of the whole body. Antidiuretic hormones is very important hormone. It controls our water balance in body, right? So here these receptors are called osmotic receptors. What is the name of these receptor? Osmotic receptor. And when you hear osmosis, it means that this is something related to water, right? So when our body have low water level, when you are not drinking water, the osmolarity of water is increases, mean the blood is concentrated now because you are not drinking enough water. By that these receptor activated and gives action potential to this terminal. In response of these signals, it release ADH into here, right? And these ADH acts on nephrons. What is nephron? The functional unit of kidney, which is responsible for filtration and water balance, right? So this antidiuretic hormones acts on collecting ducts, and when it came here For example, we have these blood vessels, and now blood have low water level, and we have to increase this level, right? For example, 100 ml of water is coming here, only 1% is converted into urine, only 1%, right? When you are not taking enough water, these receptor will be activated and it will release antidiuretic hormones. Antidiuretic hormones mean that these hormones doesn't allow the water to leave body, right? So here these ADH will act on blood vessels, right? And it will allow now the reabsorption of water from here, the reabsorption of water to blood, and the blood become diluted, right? So this is the function of ADH. ADH is also known as vasopressin. Why? MCQs करता राशि. What is the second name of ADH? It is called vasopressin, because in high amount, when this ADH is present in high amount, it acts on blood vessels and cause vasoconstriction, and because of this vasoconstriction, these ADH is also known as vasopressin, right? So this is the supraoptic nuclei which forms a antidiuretic hormones. The next is we have another nuclei here. It also have this terminal, and this nuclei is called paraventricular nuclei. It is called paraventricular nuclei. And what is the role of this nuclei? It forms oxytocin, right? And these oxytocin will came here and will store in vesicle. Now signals are required for releasing these oxytocin. And what are these signals? When what is the function of oxytocin? Constriction of uterus and ejection of milk, not the production of milk, only ejection of milk. When the baby sucks, for example, this is breast, and when baby sucks these nipples, it have a special types of neurons, very sensitive neurons, and it will activated, and the signal is moving to brain and eventually enters into hypothalamus, and this nuclei is activated, and this oxytocin will release oxytocin. And this oxytocin, for example, we have glands here for milk production. Prolactin is responsible for production of milk, and this oxytocin contract these receptor and the milk ejected, right? The females also sensitive to their babies. When the baby is crying, and she hear the crying of his baby, right? Also these receptors are activated by that crying, and the milk may be ejected by itself from breast, right? And during deliveries, the uterus is contracted by oxytocin, right? It's negative feedback, positive feedback, right? Positive feedback mechanism, right? So oxytocin is responsible for these things. These fibers are collectively, called, this tract is called supraoptic optico hypothalamic hypophysial tract, right? Supra optico hypothalamic hypophyseal tract. Hypophysis is the second name of pituitary gland, and hypothalamus is this. This is supra-optico, right? Hypothalamic hypophyseal tract. And by this tract, this posterior gland, posterior lobe of this pituitary gland is controlled, right? The last nuclei present here in this optic region is anterior hypothalamic nuclei, and this anterior hypothalamic nuclei is act as the AC air conditioner system of body, right? This is the anterior hypothalamic nuclei, right? And when our body temperature is high, this nuclei is responsible for decreasing temperature, right? Temperature control. You must heard that hypothalamus is responsible for thermoregulation, and this is the nuclei which is responsible for thermoregulation. This nuclei is also known as anti-rise nuclei. It is also known as anti-rise nuclei, mean that it avoids the rising of temperature. And when we take some ventricular bleeding or some bleeding in brain or hemorrhagic strokes, right, and the bleeds came here and affect the hypothalamus, your temperature will not falling. This is due to this nuclei is not working and cannot decrease the temperature of body, right? This is one reason which is called hyperthermia, right? So these nuclei are present in supraoptic region, and this is the intrabiological clock, and this is the intrabiological air conditioner system of body, right? The next we have tubular region, and in tubular region we have a very important nuclei, which is the most important nuclei in this hypothalamus, which is called arcade nuclei. Arcade, for example, this is arcade nuclei, but the fibers coming from this nucleus are ending in this anterior eminence, and from here these we have a we have two portal system in body. One is this hepatic portal system, which taking the blood from intestine, stomach, etc., and transmit it into liver. And the second portal system is here, which is called tubulo-hypophyseal portal system, right? Here we have blood supply. For example, this is the posterior, not posterior, this is anterior pituitary gland. Anterior pituitary gland, and this system is called tubulo-hypophyseal portal system, or simply it is called hypothalamic portal system. Right? What is its role? This nuclei is responsible for producing growth hormone releasing factor first, second growth hormone inhibitory factor, right? Next adrenocorticotropic releasing factor, thyroid stimulating hormone releasing factor, right? Prolactin releasing factor, prolactin inhibition factor, All these hormones, all these physiotrophic hormones or physiotropic factors are released by this arcade nucleus, right? And here we have a lot of cells. In pituitary gland, right? For example, when this factor is producing growth hormone releasing factor, this pituitary gland will produce growth hormone, right? When this is also known as somatostatin, and it is also known as somatotrophin, right? When this growth hormone inhibition factor is releasing, these hormones will be inhibited. Growth hormones will be inhibited. This is the activation factor and this is the inhibitory factor. When this adrenocorticotropic hormone is releasing factor is produced by this arcade nucleus, this cell will produce corticotropic hormones. We will discuss the function of these hormones in pituitary gland, right? And what is the function of this hormone? It controls the releasing of this pituitary gland. For example, it produces thyroid stimulating hormone releasing factor, right? It will release thyroid stimulating hormone, right? When here prolactin releasing factor is produced, it will produce prolactin. What is prolactin? Prolactin is responsible for milk production. And when there is very high amount of prolactin, it causes a disease which is called galactorrhea amenorrhea syndrome, in which the females produce milk although they have no babies, right? This is the condition which is occurs due to the high level of prolactins. This is the prolactin. And another very important factor produced by prolactin inhibitory factor, and when this factor is releasing, this prolactin will be inhibited. The prolactin release will be inhibited, right? And when this pathway is stopped, the females will get amenorrhea or galactorrhea disease, right? These are the some important physiotropic hormones which are produced by arcade nuclei of hypothalamus, right? And this is very important, right? These hypothalamic inhibitory factors are actually they are dopamines. They are dopamines, right? This is under research. Dopamines, right? Prolactin inhibitory factors are dopamines. The next nuclei, and this one is remaining, which is responsible for this pre-optic nuclear gonadotrophin releasing factor. It came here and will affect this cell and will produce FSH and LH, right? So these are the anterior pituitary hormones and these are the anterior pituitary control, right? The next nuclei, you already aware of this nuclei which is called the ventromedial nuclei, is present in tubular region here, right? This is the ventromedial nuclei, which is responsible for happiness, right? Full stomach, relaxation. This is that nuclei which is present in medial side. And the next very important nuclei for females is present here, which is called the dorsomedial nuclei, and all the females are trying to deactivate this nuclei in her husbands, right? Because this nuclei is responsible for active angerness, right? And when this nuclei is deactivated, the male converted into passive phase. Right? The last region is mammilary region, and this is mainly mammilary swelling. This is mammillary swelling, and here we have a nucleus which is called mammillary nuclei. Mammillary nuclei, and this mammillary nuclei is for feeding. It is for feeding, right? This is for how much you will eat, how much you will eat, right? And this nuclei is responsible for how the tea was, how the dish was. The last nuclei in hypothalamus, medial hypothalamus, is called the opposite of this nuclei. It's called posterior hypothalamic nuclei. Posterior hypothalamic nuclei, and posterior hypothalamic nuclei is responsible for, it is the biological heater of body. This nuclei is posterior hypothalamic nuclei, and when our body temperature is decreasing, this nuclei is responsible for increasing that temperature, and when our body temperature is increasing, this nuclei is responsible for decreasing that temperature. So this is the intrabiological clock, this is the intrabiological air condition, and this is the intrabiological heater of body, right? The heat is controlled by this nuclei, right? So all these, and one disease which is very important in young age, in your ages, when you are getting more thirsty and you are drinking more and more water, this is called diabetic insipidus. Diabetic insipidus, and due to some injuries or due to some reason or due to some tensions, when this ADH is not releasing, this ADH is not releasing, when this is not releasing, more and more water will leaving body, more and more water will leaving body, and you will need more water to drink. This is called diabetes insipidus, not diabetic mellitus. This is called diabetic insipidus, right? So this is all about hypothalamus. Hypothalamus is responsible for producing which factors? Now you will tell me the names. The first one is gonadotropic releasing factor 1. Second, oxytocin. Third, ADH. These two are neuroendocrine, right? And the next is growth hormone releasing factor, growth hormone inhibitory factor, prolactin releasing factor, thyroid stimulating hormone releasing factor, prolactin inhibitory factor, right? These are the basic hormones which are produced by all these are called physiotrophic hormones, because all these hormones are these chemicals are responsible for controlling pituitary gland. So we can say that hypothalamus is responsible for controlling pituitary gland, and pituitary gland is responsible for controlling all other gland, which is called master gland. There are three names for pituitary gland, which is, one is pituitary, the second is master, and the third is hypophysis, right? So all these is about hypothalamus. Understand? Any confusion? The disease which is caused by B1, thiamine deficiency. सही शो पुश पहले बंदे 10 टोटल hypothalamus देखा